saying by saying a few things.
Sure, go for it.
The cover of MIT's. This is on our uh, what is the
Slack.
Slack, man? Yes, like it's. I've been away. I can't even remember the name of stuff now. It's a special. It's not a special issue, but it's on one thing. But it's on. I'll show you the cover here, but well, it's probably it looks better, I think, in the Slack channel. So
Let's see if I can share.
it's yeah, the picture, but the contents, especially this space, office space in space, is fascinating. I haven't really had a chance to read all of it, but the one thing that is mentioned is Lambda Vision, and it's a biotech startup, and they're working on making artificial retinas in
Wow.
low Earth orbit, and it's like it's, fascinating. Supposedly, it's much easier actually to make these retinas in space than Earth. So the entire issue, I think, is worth to buy and read, and it's this month's.
Nope.
It's May and June, so I would definitely recommend it. And Dan might
I
have
have
something to
I
say
have a
about
question
that.
about that. So, could you produce things in on Earth in a large area that has been in, turned into a vacuum? Would that be the same as doing it or not?
No. The issue is gravity. It's not vacuum.
Okay,
So
so it's gravity
for
issue. Okay,
manufacturing, this is why the pharma companies are going to and medical companies are going to dominate low Earth orbit manufacturing at some point, because there's no gravity. When you're making drugs, forming molecules, or making anything else for that matter, gravity just naturally pulls on whatever you're doing. And so the ability of a molecule to be perfect can't happen because it's being pulled. It has forces exerted on its structure. In near weightlessness or weightlessness, they form perfectly. And this is what they found with the experiments on the station. So you can form perfect molecules. And one of the companies that I'm familiar with in the UK, for example, has technology where they've developed a manufacturing platform, kind of a box, let's say, um, where they can develop drugs um, in that weightless environment and end up with a much more efficient drug. The one they're working on is a big cancer drug, and because of the dramatic increase in the effectiveness of it and the way the molecules are structured, they could turn what is a miserable existence of going to the hospital all the time for treatment into a home injectable treatment because of the difference in the molecules and how they form in a weightless environment. It can move it to a home treatment. Massive savings for infrastructure, healthcare, people's life. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. But all the pharma companies are going to do this. Retina, no different. It's how everything responds to gravity versus a weightless environment. They can make a more perfect object, whatever it is. It's pretty cool.
And
so will there be? You're talking about manufacturing in space. Will there be stations up there that eventually have?
Yep.
Will there be people manning
There's
these stations, and will they
yeah.
have the?
They're shopping already. They're shopping
Sort
already. Yeah, for
so it'll
stations.
be
yeah,
kind of
and
a
my
two stage kind of a station where there's will they eventually, all the space movies have these stations that are circulating, right, that create like a
Artificial
1G
gravity. Yeah.
gravity, and then so then
Cent-
you'll go off into the
yeah.
science
Centrifugal
part of it, and
phase.
you'll
Yeah.
yeah, cool.
Some places. So, for example, if you had an orbiting station, the ones you see are wheels, or they could just be a cylinder that's rotating. That
Right.
would be where crew quarters are. And then you'd have
Right.
on a wheel, at the hub of the wheel, which isn't moving, is where you'd have your weightless environment to do your work. And then you live around the outside that's spinning.
Mhm.
Same thing with a cylinder. And then attached to the cylinder is a stationary section that doesn't have any artificial gravity. So, what are you going to
Well,
say, Sebastian?
going really crazy in a lot of the sci-fi books I read. Eventually, they
Yeah,
model out
I
asteroids and
sorry.
give them a rotation.
Strap an engine to it. Yep.
Right.
Yeah, I
Sebastian?
mean, there's a picture of this. I don't think it's not that visible, but
No.
they're showing actually it's a little box, and they're saying the retina can be manufactured in that little box without
Right.
any intervention by
Right.
astronauts.
Right.
It's like,
It's enclosed system, which is really ideal. Just send it up, let it do its thing, and bring it back. There's a company in the UK called Space Forge, who's developed the return capability, and they've already tested it in flight, where their whole objective is to go retrieve stuff from orbit and bring it back to Earth. So a special reentry vehicle, so that you bring the stuff back down and it's not destroyed, in the process or when you land. So, but yeah, there will be the big market right now for space stations, for the companies that are going to be building and selling them, is national governments who want a presence in space to conduct their own research on whatever they want to do, where they would initially have their people that are going to man it trained to work in space. The company that owns the station, that might be leasing them space, for example, on it, um, would have operators that are trained. So it would be their people operating the station, while the leased the lease guest who's using the station for a year or two of research sends their people in and they do the work. That's kind of the model, that mostly seems to make sense. But you're going to have these, the entertainment industry is looking at putting up a station. Everybody's looking at having a station for something, but this will make the most sense. And what you described as that box, that's that platform idea I was talking about. It's typically a box or some larger thing, whether it requires astronaut intervention or not. So a lot of it will.
yeah, it's fascinating, and
Oh yeah.
there's also coverage of Skylab. You might know more about this, and the initial, I guess, the first 2 pages are almost on Skylab and its history.
Yeah, there's a lot of great plans, but everybody is still, 5 to 7 years away, I think, from really being able to deliver anything substantial. We may have a couple that are fast, that try to get off the ground, before the end of the decade because of ISS shutting down. So it'll be interesting to watch. The first few are just going to be basics for NASA to replace the
Does
station.
the success of Starship immediately make those things happen faster because they can throw them into the rocket full?
Well,
I mean, does their success breed the other success quicker?
yeah. Launch capacity is an issue. We've talked about it a lot. So
Right.
having another player with a large cargo lift rocket, um, dramatically increases the launch capacity. So the only issue is timing, because they're a number of years behind SpaceX with flight heritage. And I think the biggest challenge for ULA and and Boeing is going to be the cadence. How quickly can they launch? Because they're not used to launching fast. I mean, ULA was used to launching the shuttle, and there was one time when they launched two a few hours apart, and that was the last time you saw anything that looked like an ability to launch multiple things anywhere near each other. So that's going to be a challenge, because if they can't get to the SpaceX cadence, then they're not a reliable launcher the way SpaceX is. There was a contract given by Lockheed to Firefly today or yesterday for, I think 15 launches with an option on another 10.
Wow.
And, and I'm hoping that's a good sign because Firefly is about to launch Freefall's little antenna test in another week and a half. So we think that with the launch capabilities increasing, then you're going to have more confidence, but you're going to have to see huge increase in launch capacity because the demand is already there. So it's not like it's going to create demand for launch because we have Starliner and Starship, but they're going to have to catch up to the demand that's already there. I think SpaceX is booked through 26 or something like that. I'd seen or heard.
Wow.
So it'll take a while for that actually to have an effect. Right now, there'll be plenty of people needing a launch.
But the ULA Starliner did launch today, right? And I don't know if it's docked with the.
Not yet. It'll dock on the 6th. It docks tomorrow.
Oh, cool.
So, 2 astronauts. Yay, it launched, but after how long?
Yeah.
This is it's kind of like, I hope they're not cheering too loudly. I think there's a lot of relief at Boeing and ULA right now. Boeing needed something to happen, right? But now what is the question? When's the next one? What are the results? So far, it looks like there was nothing of any material nature that happened with the launch. There is one little, cooling issue that used extra water, but they can, they've got backup. So that wasn't an issue. So we'll see. Yes, NASA can get it right if they wait forever and redo everything 5 times with redundancy. That's what we had today. I mean, that's the hangover of a no failure Boeing and a no failure ULA as a result, and a no failure NASA as a result. That's what you get. Long delays and infrequent launches.
Yeah. And also, Starship is supposed to launch in the morning, right? So.
I mean, this is exciting. This is an exciting time because now it's like, wow, there's multiple players launching. There's lots of stuff now going up. And I think you're going to see an overreaction probably in the market. I mean, for a trader, it might be an interesting opportunity because you might see a little, good news. Let's spread it around the space stocks a little bit. Let's spread some good news around. And then it'll be back to life as usual a week later. So might be good for a short-term trade, but nothing has changed fundamentally yet. Yeah. When you boil it down, the fundamentals are still the same. We still don't have the right launches. We still don't have a monster contract. We might see one from NASA. They may throw Boeing and ULA a bone right after this to say, okay, we're going to assign you more stuff. But
NASA still needs the ULA just to have an alternative to SpaceX, you think?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, all NASA did with ULA was privatize and formalize what they'd been doing.
Yeah.
At the Cape all these years. So they just took their prime contractors, kept them in business, forced them to become partners, and they're still all doing what they used to do. But, that is a company now. It's not a government entity, so it can live and die by market forces.
Yeah.
There's no, too big to fail or, it's not Amtrak. You know what I mean? It's not going to continue to get funded no matter how bad the cost overruns are. So, I think that's
at some point, the question's like, well, okay, so we have an alternative, but if it costs 10 times more to use that alternative and they only fly 10 times, less frequently, like what's the point?
And that's been the argument all along with ULA. Why do we need this? they're still trying to launch on the old cost model when you've got somebody over here who's beating it. Okay, they proved that they can launch. Now what?
Right.
Who is going to launch those, Starliners going forward? If it's going to be them, the cost will be prohibitive, and no one's going to use them. They'll be the last. Oh God, I guess I have to go to them because I can't get SpaceX. There will be a price difference anyway because of the heritage right now. There's going to be a big difference in insurance cost between the two launchers right now. So it's still SpaceX's advantage, but it's
with almost guaranteed not capacity, but with almost guaranteed need
demand
for SpaceX. Couldn't they just go build another couple buildings and start building twice as many rockets and just take it all?
And by the way, I wouldn't rule that out as a strategy, because once he gets it right and he's happy with what he's got, then he'll build a lot of the components anyway that aren't going to change. Let's say it's the engines. And then they'll start warehousing other stuff. I mean, he did announce that he's moving SpaceX's headquarters and incorporation now to Texas. So he's officially legally leaving California with the company. He may have employees there, but it will be a Texas company. And the incentives there and the room there and the infrastructure there for building massive manufacturing, take a Google satellite view of Boca Chica in Southwest Texas. You could build 1 million factories there right now without any problem. So, and Texas signed its space act, right? So they're funding that. So there's a lot of support in Texas. And I'm sure he got some incredible incentives to move there.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's the play and we see that happen. I mean,
you're seeing it happen for a lot of companies right now.
Yeah.
A lot of companies. I've talked to a number of companies leaving California.
Well, even like BlackRock is looking at their own exchange in Texas.
Right. Yeah.
No, I just thought that was interesting. Not who knows what that's going to look like, but
yeah, it's interesting.
They didn't pick New York.
No. Well, these business-friendly states, as people like to refer to them, it's pretty simple math if you're running a business, and you can't look at your shareholders with a straight face and say, "Oh, but we need to be in New York." That used to be the argument in the old days for investment firms, because that's where everything was and everything happened, and people were still handling stuff with runners, and you had to be there. Now there's nothing really physical. Unless you're a floor broker, you have no reason to be in Manhattan. So at the end of the day, where's the best place? How much more could we be making as a company? Oh, by the way, how much will I be making as the head of this company if I'm in Texas now and not in New York? I'll keep my posh penthouse in Manhattan, but my residence, it was always Florida for New Yorkers. Texas now too. And he may still be a Florida resident for all we know, but it's very common. It's just numbers don't lie, and these states can't keep companies. It's like free agency. It's like the NBA. It's like football. Hey, I can go anywhere I want. Who's going to give me the best deal? And I had a company come up to me at the symposium, and because we were part of the Arizona thing, and they were curious about incentives. They're from California. He said, "No, I'm just looking at arbitrage because I'm moving out of California. I just don't know what state I'm going to. It's going to be a matter of where it's the best financially." I mean, that was his position with his company. And he walked right across and from me and, from us on the aisle, and there was Huntsville, Alabama was there. And he went over there and they were laying out everything. New Mexico was in the next aisle. So if you don't have a competitive offering to attract and retain businesses, you're dead. And California can't get there from where their tax base is. They could never get there. So it's a real issue. And you're you'll see a lot of that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I thought you were done. I'm sorry.
No,
I was going to mention that the lunar landing was a success. That's the other big story because that's
Intuitive
uh,
Machines.
yeah, and I think it's what 100,000 skytles in terms of reward. So
Yeah, I'm gonna want to make them aware of this. I have very good relationships there, but I'm gonna um, want to just send them something to let them know what we're doing. So we should think about what we would send to an unknowing company. I was just talking to them yesterday. Um, so they're well on their way to getting the second lander ready. Athena, or Addie, Attie, just the way Odysseus was Odie, his nickname. So the second lander, they're hoping late this year. And, we continue to work with them on things. Likely that'll be applicable for Lander 3. The first two, they had already kind of pre-set with everything. They did parts for 2. And then they're going to move on from there to start adding bells and whistles. So,
well, you might want to talk about this, meaning lunar ending and Eddie, that you mentioned maybe for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes next week.
yeah, we can talk about that. I mean, it's going to be interesting because the moon is going to take a lot of attention as we get closer to launching there. Because then suddenly Earth orbit's going to seem like, oh yeah, it's our backyard again. But the stuff going on in the low Earth orbit is going to be exciting. And I can tell you that in the satellite communications industry, more and more from defense as well as commercial is looking at pushing out. Well, maybe we need to put more stuff in middle Earth orbit. Maybe we need to put more stuff in geosynchronous orbit. And so there's this push to find more room and to develop better technology to compensate for the latency, the delay increase you get the further out you go. So there's a lot of people saying we're not going to get the debris cleaned up in a big way anytime soon. There's a lot of concern that the debris is not going to be gone by the time all this stuff happens. And it won't be. Hopefully the big stuff is. So they're already building plans to push a little further out.
I remember seeing something about on how to identify satellites, and I'm trying to. I don't want to leave our meeting right now to search for it or I don't know if I saved the link or something that I can't find it right now, but I'll try to find it next week when we meet again. I don't know if you heard anything about like a new way to identify or proposed way to identify satellites.
You mean from a database perspective, or just
No,
when you're up there?
up
Yeah,
there, yeah.
yeah.
Actually, like some sort of tag or something. I don't know exactly
Well,
what.
they are. They have identifiers. I mean, we know which satellites belong to who, how many they have up. We track every launch. We track their orbits. We can see almost everything. And there are databases that do this. There are now new startups that have focused on, not only the satellites, but tracking the debris along with the satellites, because the two of those are inextricably linked. And so debris tracking and looking at satellite orbits and trying to project if there's going to be debris where they need to move the satellite or something. But I mean, in terms of that, the request by the government for a lot of these grants and it was Space Force especially, looking for ways to identify that something is a friendly, an adversarial piece of hardware in space, a rock that isn't somebody's hardware, and trying to identify objects initially just by visual shape or some kind of a reading, whether it's infrared or some other analysis. But what's happening now is there's been a move, and it's been relatively quiet, but I believe there's been an effort to try to install, camera packs. We talk about servicing satellites. One of the things is not only to update their software to give them a new something or other, but to attach what it's like a small backpack, basically, with cameras that can be connected to the satellite so that they have eyes to see what's going on around them. Because right now, if it's a blind satellite, something or somebody can go right up to it and do something to it, and we'd never know what happened or who did it. So that's a big issue, is putting eyes on the satellites, and most of them now have eyes. Not the Starlink, no, but the bigger ones, they have to.
You can track the satellites, though, can't you? Track what's next to the satellite. I mean, wouldn't you know who was doing what to what?
Well, you might know
in theory
there's something there. You won't be able to confirm necessarily what it is unless you've had it tracked for a long time and you're seeing it move somewhere. But and then there's the other stuff that nobody knows is up there, just like our X-37B. We don't announce that it's up there. We tend to find out when they come back and land. But those are the kinds of spacecraft that are the ones every country's worried about the other one having. These little nuclear powered, autonomous spacecraft that have all kinds of stuff in them that nobody knows about. They can go do a whole bunch of things that nobody knows about. That's the concern. We talk about weapons in space. That includes things like that, where it's just kinetic energy. You don't need to blow something up with a bomb. You just need to bang into it. That's all.
Okay.
What's going on in crypto, Cabana?
Well, funny you ask, Mr. Geraci. I think I mentioned it last week. Just brought up some charts, and a lot of those were kind of right back up, and we're just banging against resistance at highs. And I'm just really at this point waiting for Bitcoin to break out. We're in the low 70s right now, 71.2, and I think you might get one last chance in the mid to upper 60s if it just goes down and tests that one more time. But every chart that I see looks like it's just ready to rip at least 10% in the next coming weeks, multi-year, multi-month, multi-week. It's all just a nice base, all of them. And I mean, if you want a bullish setup and a seasonal time to do it post halvening, all the stars are aligned. This is a space podcast or whatever, so they are indeed for Bitcoin. So I think it's going to be a good summer, barring any unforeseen weird stuff with geopolitics or other potential black swans out there. But looks good to go. And then Ethereum looks kind of great with it. That is also got a little flag to it that might be breaking out of a bull flag, even though that's been up a lot more recently than Bitcoin. But it gets through this little flag here, and then we're on to 4K, and then all-time highs for that as well. So bullish on the majors, I'll say that. And then
saw BNB's been screaming up for the last while as well. It's been going.
Yeah, I think that was one of the charts I pulled up last week. That looked really
was
good.
it? Sorry.
No, yeah, and it kind of has that. It's basing right around at the highs, and once it busts above that, then we're good to go. But Bitcoin just looks technically sound. Just every chart that I'm seeing that I care to reference. So I am bullish. Now watch it go to zero tomorrow.
Give me just a minute. I got to transfer some money. Just give me a
It's a good buy. Goodbye to your money. Goodbye to your good looks.
Don't want to say last chance, but if it's upper 60s, I would I would be surprised if you see some YOLO action going on. So.
No, it's like when you're online shopping, only 3 left.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure. Come on, did you see that a Bitcoin miner, Core Scientific, got acquired by a cloud company for $1.3 billion? It was a 40% premium or something like that to where the stock was trading before that.
Wow.
And I think the logic is less to do with Bitcoin, because I don't think any of the Bitcoin mining companies are profitable. I know they're not profitable, but they do have data centers and compute capacity and electrical hookups, and that's what you need for AI right now. The shortage, the bottleneck in AI, other than just getting NVIDIA chips, is hooking up to the grid somehow. And so I think these cloud companies think that they could potentially buy just the data center and get the shell and the electrical hookup, put a bunch of NVIDIA H100 chips in there, and wham bam, you've got an AI factory, as Jensen Huang likes to call it.
An AI factory. That'll be
Well,
the next thing.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting with the. I think the utility company should get into the Bitcoin business. They have all the electricity, so
Right.
I think they should. The heck with carbon credits. They should be trading Bitcoin and using their own profits to pay for the electricity. So,
I mean,
it's hysterical. I mean, I say that in jest because these prices, these valuations for these miners, this too shall pass. So,
yeah. I mean, if there was a time,
a short seller came out and said that they are starting a war on the miners today. They started with Riot Blockchain as their first target.
Oh, yeah, there are no rules. It started out as a segment with no rules, right? By definition. And the way the players are, they definitely are used to playing with no rules. So this will be interesting.
Like, I can agree with the, I guess, long-term logic of those calls against the miners, but like right now in this particular time, when you have Bitcoin price potentially about to, break out and rip post-halvening, and then, I think the miners might even have more margins right now. So it's like, I don't know if I'd want to start a war right this second. Maybe like next year when like the froth is peaked. But to each their own.
Well, and everybody trying to play games with these guys. In the background, there's some I want to make a name for myself person at a regulatory agency that's saying, okay, at what point does this become manipulation? At what point does this become taking actions to impede the value of a company or the value of a security or anything like that? Because that's what I would be screaming if I was a miner.
Yeah, well, they do. Sitting up in my chair looking at the Bitcoin chart.
Yeah.
For the memesters out there who got it.
Right up.
Yeah. Now, anytime the price of a Bitcoin mining stock goes down or crypto goes down, it usually has to do with market manipulation, according to the bulls. I don't know about you, Bono, but I see a lot of it on Twitter.
That's a lot of stocks and anything else. It's being manipulated. Right. I'm not getting the price that I want.
Right.
And the regulators wouldn't know what to do with it, even if they tried to do something. It's like they're still trying to figure this out. They don't know who to go after and for what.
Yeah.
They're worried about a guy posting his options position and instead of like actual crooks out there. So it's just like this is where our priorities are. So.
Sounds about right. Okay, we're good.
Well, we do the voting is done on the award, so we'll reach out to those companies, the 4 companies that everybody voted yes, and so we will reach out to those 4 companies and get them their SKTLs award.
Well, last time looked, I think only like 5 people voted, 5 or maybe 6. I don't know if it went up, or not. So you got to, get used to actually voting, for it, every single one of us. Just, right now we have 5. With Cody, we have 6. And Daniel usually votes as he prepares the announcement. So there should be at least, 7, 8 votes.
Yeah,
not more.
We should probably try to set something up that's as simple as like a doodle poll or one of those things that can just be sent to the people at a specific time where you just have to put in your.
Well, it is being. I mean, it is once it's announced. For voting, you need to use. You need to basically connect your wallet. So that's the additional step. Unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You cannot avoid that. So, anyways, thank you.
All right.
And we'll see you next week.
All right, everybody. Have a good week. Stay safe.
Bye bye.
Thanks.
See you guys.
See ya.
Bye.